Okey-dokey. Welcome to December's PeriClinic. We're talking about boundaries. And boundaries is one of my most favourite topics that I can talk about for a very long time. And I think they're very important. And I think a lot of women don't quite feel comfortable setting any, don't know where to start, don't know, let people unintentionally trample over their boundaries even when they do set them. I think because a lot of us have been conditioned to be people pleasers, shall we say. Anyway, before I get onto my soapbox about boundaries, let's have some introductions. I'm going to start with you, Tara.
Good morning, everyone, or whatever time it is, wherever you're joining from. I'm Dr. Tara Lensegrove Benson. I'm a clinical psychologist in the US, and I practice in 43 states. I see mostly women individually as well as in group therapy, and my group is all about all things mental health for perimenopause. And I'm currently screening for a winter start, hopefully late January, early February, for another cohort of that group. So that's a small format where you really dig in, get to know 8 to 10 women very, very well. And it's an intimate place to share and grow relationships at this critical time of our lives.
Awesome. Nikki.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nikki Leary. I am a nutritional therapy practitioner, a Reiki practitioner, and a list. Coming to you from my farm in central Wisconsin. I live here on my farm. I also grow teas that are specific for women in perimenopause because plants are healing, and I love to create teas that help, but also from a nutrition side, minerals and mineral deficiencies. And as we talk about boundaries today, I get to talk about how they materialize, although when you don't set boundaries, you see it in yourself and you see it in your minerals. And I'm sure we can get to that, but that's how boundaries affect everything. So I'm really excited about it.
Awesome. Molly.
Hey everyone, Molly Dahlbeck. I'm here in Minnesota, close to Nikki in Wisconsin there. So seeing a lot of snow this morning. So I'm a certified medical, or that was what I used to be, as a certified medical assistant. It just flew off the tongue. So a certified menopause specialist. And so I help women regain their energy, really create a new vision for their life, as well as redefine their work professionally. And where that really came from is I experienced 7 herniated discs in my back while I was going through perimenopause, and I needed to really learn how to rebuild my health and redesign my life in a way that really worked for me. And so I created a community called This Modern Midlife for women that are really looking to redefine this next chapter of their life. So super happy to
Fab.
be here.
Leslie.
Hi there. I am technically by trade a registered dietitian and a personal trainer, but I call myself a nervous system expert. And I run a community called Hear Yourself Again for midlife women who are what I like to call the strong silent woman, which is they've spent years overproducing, overworking, overdoing everything, carrying all of the emotional labor of everyone around them, maybe even from a small child all the way up. And I help them get back to sleeping, digesting, and feeling more like themselves, so they can hear the inner voice to know what is the next step for them. That's what I do.
And Joe.
Hello, I'm Jo. I am a clinical therapist and mindfulness teacher, and I also co-pilot the hub with Emily. We sort of run things behind the scenes and make plans and schemes between us, which is marvelous. And I help women who are predominantly really struggling with anxiety, hot flushes, low mood, insomnia, overthinking, brain fog is the big one that I almost couldn't remember there for a second. And I work in the UK, I work globally, online around the world as well. Yeah, that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
And I'm Emily. I run the hub. That's kind of me. And I have strong opinions about boundaries, having been somebody who learnt about them way too late, really.
Mm.
But there we are. Um, oh, Leslie disappeared. I'm sure she'll be back again in a
She'll be
second.
back in a sec, I'm sure.
Um, so boundaries. Tara, I'm going to come to you first. in your line of work, you must see such a lot of stuff that kind of just stems from people not really setting boundaries. So where do we start?
Well, really, first, I work with people to understand what is a boundary. Where do I
Right.
begin and you begin? And what is that separation? What do we need to have safety and set really clear, assertive expectations, especially in our relationships? And sometimes that's even in our relationship with ourselves. So I think first is like teaching the foundation of what are boundaries. I love the book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. The author's name is Nedra. She has amazing socials. There's tons of good resources out there to understand boundaries, learn how to set them. And then when I'm working with people individually in particular, we kind of understand, get to know the person and understand where are their hindrances or challenges with setting boundaries. Are they too porous, too loose? Are they too rigid? This one is a little more rare, I have to say, especially in women where it's too rigid. And then even in the process of learning how to set them, sometimes the pendulum can swing, right? Where it's like, okay, I don't know how to set boundaries. I don't have any boundaries. I'm pissed off about that. And then the pendulum can swing a little too far. So I think it's a lot about practice and getting to know yourself, why you have the boundaries or lack thereof that you do, and then where do you want to set boundaries? And you have to know your why when you're setting a boundary, like the values component of like, why does it actually matter to me? What do I want to continue to kind of let roll, let slide? And what do I feel like I have to set this because it's eating me alive? Right. So that boundaries can be emotional, intellectual, financial, our property, sexual intimacy. It can run the gamut of all things in relationships. So I hope that answers your question. I'm happy to go in multiple directions because I've been working with a ton of people just this week and set a boundary myself this morning. So I'm all things boundaries right now, especially this time of year.
That's yes, this time of year in is so key as well because I think too many people feel the pressure over the holiday season to kind of live out old
Yeah.
things that actually are trampling all over all their boundaries because they can't quite say no to family people and stuff.
Right.
One thing I really like that you just it's the why,
Hmm.
isn't it? And actually I think a lot of people overlook that if you don't have your why,
Yeah.
it
Then
doesn't
there's
yeah.
nothing behind it. And it's really, really hard. Like, I feel like one of the main obstacles I work with people on is like the next step of like, okay, you know why you want to set them, you know why it's difficult for you to set them, and then following through. So like
Yeah,
articulating it clearly so the other person, there's really zero room for them to misunderstand what you intend. So that's the assertive articulation of what you expect, what you need. And then the follow through, I feel like a lot of people really struggle, and it's a process of maybe years of like setting the firm and like fair boundary, and then the follow through because things can fall apart because there's people will get defensive, people will challenge you because you're being different suddenly, and it's perceived as sudden on their side. They don't know the years of work behind all of our journeys, right? So sometimes it's like you get pushback sometimes when you set boundaries. So it's like, okay, when you have your why, it's a lot easier to go back to that and like find that moment of peace, take a breath, settle in back into the why, and then reaffirm the boundary, maybe restate it in a different way. Just like with kids, sometimes you have to restate it 1,000 times before they get it, right? So, like working with our relationships, I think whether they're too porous, too flexible, or too firm, we have to be flexible in figuring out, okay, in my relationship with you, Emily, like, how does me setting a boundary work in a way that you can hear it? And I continue to follow through on my why in terms of what's important to me.
so true. And I'm going to come on to each of an example of a boundary that each of us have in due course because I think it's useful for people to see that we have boundaries and that we, you know, enforce them as well. Molly, I feel like boundaries kind of threw themselves at you, like you had to learn them.
Yes, I was just gonna say I was a late bloomer like you, Emily. So it really took me my back breaking down. Yes, I needed to learn to first allow people to come alongside me and help me. And I think that vulnerability kind of opened up this like it kind of cracked me open where it was like, oh, I can't do it all by myself. Like I actually need to start asking for help. And then we started homeschooling the kids too. So if you have, a couple preteens, now teenager, home all day, you have to learn how to set boundaries. So one thing that really helped me, I don't know where I read this, but I think it was a quote and I saved it. The only people who get upset with you setting boundaries are the ones who benefited from you not having any. And I was like, okay, like who's benefiting from my non-boundaries? So I had to kind of take like an inventory of, where am I kind of getting a little bit walked all over in my life? I could have used a Tara in my pocket while I was building this up because it's so true that you feel almost like a little bit, for lack of a better word, kind of like bitchy for a little bit because you're like, no, I'm actually not gonna do that. And you're not used to saying no. Hopefully it's okay that I said that.
Mhm.
But it's almost like you start kind of coming into you know, um, this new realm of yourself. And it really, for me, it had to do with valuing my own boundaries and like even understanding what they are. And it also came down to like understanding my preference. And so I started working with a coach that had me work on little things like, when you choose a coffee mug, you choose the one that you love, and you just start to honor like your own preference. And that kind of helps you like build up that value of like, oh, my voice matters, like my choice matters, and I'm going to choose the things that I want to choose because they make me happy and not based on what somebody else thinks, right? And so I think for a long time, I know for women, we kind of go with the flow and we want to be easy and light and free. But sometimes when it crosses the line of like self-abandonment, then you start to feel resentment come up. And most likely you need to start creating a boundary when you start feeling that resentment. But then you have to deal with like the guilt of setting the boundaries and like following through, like Tara was saying. Be like, no. And then people eventually will catch on. So that's kind of been my journey. And again, I don't think that work is ever going to be done. I think it's going to be an ongoing practice, but I've definitely come a long way and super grateful for that because other people then will start to treat you accordingly, and it is true that we teach people how to treat us. A couple books that helped for me was Dr. Henry Cloud's Boundaries book, as well as Codependent No More with I think it's Melanie Beattie. It's kind of, going over like, actual tools of how to set boundaries has been helpful for me. So
Awesome. So in terms of the body letting us know when we have not got a boundary right, I feel like Nikki and Leslie both have stuff to share on this. Who's going to go first? Go on, Leslie.
I was gonna say I'll go. That's fine.
Okay, go.
What's really interesting is I just wanted to tag in here because I'm going to talk about the body to transition. Is that this whenever we say boundaries, it reminds me of the Friends episode at Thanksgiving where Monica's like, okay, I've got your potatoes and your potatoes and your potatoes and your potatoes. And at the end, she just loses about making 15 types of potatoes. She's like, I've done all these potatoes and none of you people are even happy that I've made all these potatoes, right? Like I know it seems really simple, but to me, that is it. And it shows up in ways like I did all the dishes, and then you turn around and you're like, who put the dirty spoon in the sink? Why is the dirty spoon in the sink? Why is there still a spoon in the sink? Like I just cleaned this up, right? And it's that moment of like, I've tipped too far. So to me, when we talk about boundaries and we talk about things like this, the boundaries go in all directions, right? And around the holidays, whether it's holidays or getting together, because a lot of you guys talked a lot about like family and setting boundaries and like saying no, right? One of the biggest ways in our body is like grandma's like, hey, I made your favorite cookies. And you're like, yeah, I don't really want to eat the cookie. But how do I tell grandma no? Right? Okay. Or it's that conversation where somebody's like, oh, you look like you gained a few, or look like you lost a few, right? Or what's going on, or even worse when it's comments about your kids and their bodies, right? Or things along those lines. So to me, when it comes to these things, I do one of two things. And my favorite one is really coming from the good inside person because I have two small children, so I learn a lot from the good inside. Dr. Becky Kennedy runs a clinic called called Good Inside, and she teaches two things are true. And so I typically say, you know what? Like I can see that to you that this is really important to you and that you really want me to know this. And I think that's cool for your opinion. But I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, I'm still good. My kid's still good. And we're going to choose to, because I'm American at heart, plead the fifth on this one and not going to answer that question. Right. And so we're going to go a different way. And if we can't seem to transition the conversation, that's when I'll segue to something different. Right. And I'll move somewhere else. And then when it comes to food boundaries, right? Because we can all have those kinds of things of like, I don't eat that or I don't do that. If someone gives me guilt or shame around like I'm not eating that anymore, that doesn't do right for my body, the typically the next thing when somebody's like, oh, why? Because you're following that train or something, I'm always like, I like to see them. Like, I totally understand that you would think that. And no, I've just noticed this really good response, right? Validate their like insecurity around you shifting because it's really not that they're upset that you did it. It's that they too have that same fear of like, am I not doing it right? Did I mess it up? So when you can give them like, no, and I totally understand why you wouldn't be or why this doesn't pertain to you. I am for this reason. When you give them that, it like calms them. And that's how I like to really go into it. And then if any time any of those things aren't crossed and they continue to go, that's when silent treatment and walking away is completely a valuable response. And there should be nothing wrong with that. So, yeah.
Love it. Nikki, from a sort of energy point of view, where do we come at from boundaries from your standpoint?
Well, so I'm like, I have the standpoint that how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you are losing energy, or what I call is leaking energy in a certain area, it's where you leaking it to, and are you intentionally choosing to leak to those people or to those situations? You know, if you're giving to everyone, you can't fill from an empty cup. You know, you're pour from an empty cup. So it's that whole like yes, if you're not setting good boundaries in other relationships, you're probably not setting good boundaries for yourself. You know, just focusing on you. Where are you not tuning into your body? Where are you telling yourself, like, I'm going to push through? It's just a cold. I'll go to work and, you know, make it be a 7-day cold versus taking a day or two off to heal myself. And, you know, really put myself first in that situation. You know, are you setting your boundaries with that and making sure you're at your best potential before you go and offer to someone else? And where I see it showing up is actually, you know, so energetically it starts, right? You're leaking your energy and giving it to all these people, but then you run out of energy. So you're tired and you're fatigued. You have that, but then your body actually shows signs. I can see it at the cellular level when I do a mineral test that this person is burnt out or this person is stressed. And you're going to see it by your leaking magnesium. When you're stressed out, your magnesium just leaks from your cells. So then you need to take even more magnesium, you know, than you're originally taking just to get yourself back to normal. And that can be, you know, a stressful sound can cause you to leak magnesium. So imagine when you put yourself in a situation that goes against your boundaries. You didn't want to go to that party. You didn't want to show up at that event, that you're there and you're just leaking energy, leaking your minerals or nutrients from your body. And you needed those minerals to make your hormones, to make your body function. And instead, you're giving it to everyone else. So, yes, it's an energetic level. If, from an energy perspective, how much energy you have, but how much energy you're giving to others. And then there's a physical response to it because you can see it in your body. And that always, you know, sounds crazy that like I can see that you're burnt out, not just you look frazzled today or you're a hot mess, but without even seeing you, looking at your lab results, I can see you are burnt out, which means you're not paying attention to your body. You're not, your boundaries are impeding your health. And that's where I think women start to see it, right? The symptom is your body's sign of, hey, something's going on. So if you're frustrated, that's your sign. If you're like, I'm exhausted all the time, that's your sign. Like your boundaries are not where they need to be. And now is a good chance to redraw them.
Joe, I'm going to come to you in a second, but I'm very aware that Tara's got to go any minute. So I'm just going to ask her one quick question before she goes, and then I'll come back. Tara, what is one of your boundaries that you absolutely swear by, and how did you realize that needed to be a boundary?
Well, I'm loving everything I'm hearing from everyone. I can relate to a piece or more than one piece from everyone that I've heard so far today. And for me, I have a whole bunch of autoimmune stuff that came, as Nikki would probably identify from my hair at that time or my labs at that time, but from probably just overdoing it. This Iron Woman, I think, Leslie, that was your phrase that I really resonated with, of like, just do it all A+ all the time, right? And like the mature for your age child just kept that train rolling through until like my late 30s, early 40s, it started kind of hitting a brick wall, right? And I didn't know what was happening, of course, right? So I think it was really finding that limit for myself, like Molly was talking about with your back, right? Like that I had to start like figuring out like what's going on with my health. And then traditional medicine wasn't super helpful with that. So going down different functional medicine and different tracks. And then obviously, like, look at me, I'm a accomplished clinical health psychologist, right? Like using my knowledge and skills to tap into the mental health side of things as well. So I would say it was an effort of kind of digging to the root causes of why I was struggling. So setting boundaries around sleep in particular. So before I was kind of in a culture where getting good sleep wasn't revered. It was kind of like looked down upon. Like, oh, I only need this much sleep, or
Oh, I'll
I
sleep when I'm dead. Yeah, all right.
exactly like what the F, right? We all need sleep to restore. Obviously, it serves really important brain functions, and mind and body are not separate. So I just started really valuing my sleep and setting clear boundaries around that, whether it's around like times of travel, times with family, other places where, maybe we would stay up later than typical, right? Like, and allowing myself to do that a little bit, but knowing like when I have to get up at 6 in the morning the next morning, I'm gonna have to call it, even though I want to go out and go hang out with the group and have a cocktail or whatever it might be that I used to kind of let myself get pulled into, but would kind of take me down in the long term, right? Like I just didn't have the energy the next day or then really energy for my life and capacity to fulfill my dreams and be a good mom and all the things that are so desperately important to me from a values perspective. So, like setting those limits and being less fun, less people pleasing, maybe even less, cool or whatever I had in my mind that I needed to be. So, like, valuing my sleep is probably the biggest one that I do for myself and for everybody in my life, for my clients, for my family, for everybody. It benefits all of us. So, I need about 7 or 8 hours plus per night, and that's okay. That's healthy. I don't have to be Superwoman.
No, absolutely. And to be honest, you're better at being Superwoman with some sleep behind you.
Yes, yes.
It's a lot easier to put the cape on when you've had a good kip.
When you're
Thank you
well
so much.
rested.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm very aware you need to go. So thank you very much for being with us, Tara.
Yes, it was wonderful to see everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Tara. Lovely to see you.
Joe,
Yes.
from your therapist's hat, where are we with boundaries?
Well, I'm not going to go on and on about this. I tend to come at it from a standpoint that we are so appallingly bad generally as women at setting boundaries for lots and lots of different reasons. And a lot of them are societal, they're cultural, they're depending massively on how we were raised, how we were brought up. For example, a lot of my particular upbringing was in the early 1970s, and we weren't really allowed to say no or to not do things that we were told to do.
Okay.
And productivity was very much linked to self-worth. So, or rather the other way around, self-worth was linked to productivity. So if you didn't do things, it was construed as lazy. And then as we go through the whole hormonal change of puberty and estrogen and everything kicks in life, we then kind of almost subjugate our own needs, pleasure, desires, wants, likes for the benefit of everybody else around us, to kind of tap into that tribally unuseful but kind of essential hundreds of thousands of years ago trait in behavior that we needed to be useful in the tribe or fit in. Otherwise, we'd be cast out into the wilderness and eaten by something wild. And actually, that's not true nowadays. However, we still retain a lot of this kind of cultural, societal construct impact that we've received over the years. So one of the biggest things, I do women's circles, and we talk extensively at two particular points of the year around boundaries, and November's one of them. I actually call it November. This is where we say no to things. And it works really well to kind of get back into that, looking at why are we so keen to keep everybody happy at our own expense? What is it that we're trying to achieve? So, getting into a little bit of the courage to be disliked and disapproved of. And one of the things that came out of this most significantly is that we very regularly choose long-term resentment over short-term discomfort of saying no, or saying, yeah, that doesn't work for me. And we also have no framework. We have no language inherently to create boundaries. We don't have the references to do that. So for me, that's kind of where I start from the boundaries point of view, is looking at what they are, why we find it so difficult, and then bringing in some examples, some constructs, some language, and getting them rehearsed. That sounds really like kind of an obvious thing to say, but one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves is this inner mental rehearsal, and even role play it out with safe people to practice boundaries. It needs to become something that is so familiar to us that it just trips off the tongue. And the aim, which I'll get into a bit later, is creating sturdy, loving boundaries, not fortresses that keep people out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and that's a very good point. It can become it can be quite easy to sort of go too far, can't it? And sort of go, right, I'm saying no to everything. No, everything's just no, get out of my life. And then sort of go, oh God.
Like Tara said, the pendulum can swing back too far the other way sometimes,
right.
And then suddenly we find that everything suddenly needs a boundary. Maybe it does.
Absolutely. So, question to all of you. I will come around each of you in turn again. How do we establish what boundary we want to set and then set it?
Good question.
Do you want to lead with that one, Jo?
Okay. The first thing really is about expanding the self-awareness to understand where the triggers are coming up in your body. What is coming up for you day in, day out? Where are you feeling that resentment? Over what particular topics? What particular instances? And it does involve a little bit of work into this self-analysis of what is actually showing up for me. And sometimes we don't even do that because we haven't got time. And we're just like, oh, it's fine, I'll deal with it later. And so it does require a little bit of determination to start really noticing and allowing it in, to notice when the resentment is coming up. Where are we feeling that frustration? Where does it show up? And I know Leslie and Nikki are very, very tuned into this in terms of where do I physically feel it in my body? What is the body sensation that accompanies this feeling? And starting to kind of widen the goalposts of our experience a little bit to be able to start feeling into what our natural yeses and no cues are. We're not very good at noticing those. So one exercise I tend to do with lots of women is teaching them how to feel their intuitive yeses and nos in their body through a tiny little exercise that takes 10 minutes. Does that kind of start to answer it a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that leads beautifully to Leslie.
Wonderful. I love that. I was like, I can totally go to that. So I'm going to agree on that. And I'm going to say to that, the way that I determine where to start with a boundary is based on my value. So I'm always going to go straight back to like, what do I value? What do I care about the most? Right? Where is this at? And I love the analogy because I'm great at guilt. I was born and raised Catholic. So guilt is like my best friend, probably better than anybody else in the world. Okay. But I love the equation of like, guilt is something you experience when you go against your value. If you're feeling guilt and it's not against your value, you have picked up someone else's emotional responsibility. And that's where I know how to set a boundary because this is no longer mine to take. This is yours. Okay. So, like going back to the grandmother's cookie, right? I'm afraid to say no to my grandma's cookie. Okay, probably bad for me to say because at this point it's my mom, right? Okay, so listen, my mom made my favorite thing, which now she's learned not to ask me because it's like, Mom, I don't really care. Whatever you make, I'm good to go. I'm going to eat it, right? Like, but so we got to cross that, right? So mom comes at me like, oh, but this is like your favorite thing to eat when you're home. Now, that might be true. That might not be true. Maybe something shifted, right? And I'm going to say, Mom, like, I absolutely love how you love to cook for us. It means so much to me, right? But I actually don't eat this anymore and I'm sorry, right? So now ahead of time, she's always asking, I'm not going home for Christmas, but let's say I was, okay? She's always asking, what do you want? What will you eat? Like she doesn't want to have things there that aren't there. So she learned a clear boundary without me actually having to say, just ask me ahead of time and let's not waste food. It was like she resonated with that, right? So I always go back to the values of what is it that I'm actually valuing. And when I start to feel the guilt, I'm like, am I feeling the guilt based on the value that I have? Or is it the guilt because this person is feeling bad and now I need to feel bad and feel guilty for the way that I made this person feel bad solely because I've shifted in my perspective? And that's really what I would say. And I also love the techniques. I also teach people techniques of how to like use your body to like, is this something I need to get firmer on or can I loosen, right? And in seconds, once you practice it, right, you can know and you can know I'm going to go forward or I'm going to back up. So the pendulum, like Tara said, doesn't swing too far in one direction. And then all of a sudden, you're not where you wanted to be on Christmas Eve morning or something. So.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
Molly, any further thoughts?
Yeah, all so good. And for me, it goes down to, or it comes down to like a non-negotiable, setting up your own non-negotiables for your day. I read a book called Working with the Law, and it talked about the law of non-resistance. And so that really taught me instead of like resisting, like you can't create a positive from a negative. And so when I focus just on like what is going to make me feel positive, what's going to give me more value, what's going to be that, like I teach my midlife ladies, like choose one catalyst habit. So a catalyst habit is basically like, what is that one thing you might be avoiding it every single day? But if you do that one thing, it's going to create a ripple effect in all the other habits of your life. For me, that's daily movement. It's got to be 30 minutes to an hour. If I move my body every day, I'm going to be a happier person. I'm going to choose healthier foods. I'm going to be in a better mood. And I'm going to be more productive. I know that that's my catalyst habit. And so that's my non-negotiable, which my back going out taught me I absolutely have to do that. So unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way, but choosing your catalyst habit and then allowing the positive, you know, you know, juju or whatever from that habit that you stay true to, that's your value, that's gonna ripple out to everybody else. They'll be like, oh, mom's working out right now. Like we don't, like that's she's got to do that for herself. And then everybody starts to understand that's good for all of us.
Mm.
That's good for
Yeah.
all of us if we do that. So another thing that, I when I started learning boundaries, a couple phrases kept popping in my head where I was like, I needed to separate, is this a you issue or does this have to do with me? Do I have a responsibility with me within this thing? And I started saying, oh, not my monkey. In
Mm.
my head, I was like, that sounds like a you problem. That's not my monkey. And so that kind of helped me interrupt the pattern of like what do I have to take on? I don't know if it was Leslie or Joel that was talking about that, but when you you're physically taking on other people's stuff and it starts to break down your body, or maybe Nikki was talking about it. And that I believe is why my body started breaking down, is because I didn't have those boundaries, but it was like a nervous system thing,
Right.
that I couldn't figure out. It's not like there was words for it. So that's kind of my piece on, just, yeah, that whole conversation. Everything that all of you ladies have shared on that is super valuable. I've got my notes over here.
I'm writing
So,
down stuff from everybody. I love
Yeah,
this.
me too. This is
yes.
great.
Yeah.
Nikki, what would you like to add to that about how we establish what our boundary is and then set it?
Well, I mean, I love what everyone's saying, and I'm gonna tag on to I think everyone's saying and string it together is that guilt that we're talking about, guilt you feel, like these saying you know, telling someone something, then you feel guilt. It shows up as a boundary issue because it actually comes a gallbladder issue. So I can tell you, this is like my little secret coaching thing. If you tell me that you have gallbladder issues, I know you are either a people pleaser or just really bad at setting boundaries, because guilt and shame are emotions generated from the gallbladder. And if they've been just like overshooting all the time, just like cortisol, right? When your levels get off, then yeah, your gallbladder goes out. And you'll notice it. Think of, if it's happening to you or someone in your life, and you're like, yeah, her gallbladder went down, but I see where she has people pleasing tendencies. There's a correlation there. So I think start to notice a correlation, like everyone's saying, notice it in your body. I think when we talk about boundaries, the initial thought that I typically have or people will have is like, well, yeah, I need to set better boundaries with my mother-in-law, my mom, my sisters. It's a relationship with someone external to yourself. And the starting point isn't like, how do I explain her, to her what I want to say. It's really start with you and understanding what are your values, right? You can't have the conversation with your mom and say, Mom, I'm not gonna, don't ask me about cookies unless like Leslie had to do the work and say, like, cookies don't make me happy. Seeing you makes me happy. I'm okay with that. So I don't feel offended or shameful when I tell you something that's true to myself. I don't care about cookies, Mom. Um, but it starts with you, right? So it's, really what I encourage everyone is, where are you ignoring, like you ignoring your own boundaries?
Mm.
Is that showing up as, I skipped lunch today because I was busy or I'm tired or there's something really good and I don't want to spend 30 minutes cooking something for myself in the middle of the day when I just want to get back to work and eat in front of my computer. Okay, well, maybe that was your own boundary that you just drove right over and ignored. Um, is it something small like that? Where are you giving, maybe you're not picking your favorite mug, when you should just allow yourself that little bit of joy and you're just, again, trampling your own self-worth and your own boundaries. So that's where I encourage everyone, start with you, you know?
Mm.
Yeah. I'm finding it interesting that we all feel that need for a boundary and we express it slightly differently. So Joe's talking about resistance, Leslie's talking about guilt. To me, it feels like a flickering of stress coming in. And that's when I know that it's gone too far and I need to put something in. And sort of a combination of stress and overwhelm. And it's really interesting how each of us has our different terminology for it, our different ways. And then I guess once we identify what that feels like in us, when it feels like something's too much, that's when we're able to start acting upon it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So personally, from my point of view, I sort of alluded to this at the start. I was terrible for boundaries, like literally zero concept that they even existed. And then when I got together with my partner, it's been like 15 years now. Whenever something would happen, there'd been an event that I didn't want to go to or whatever, I'd be like, oh God, what do I tell them? Oh God, how do I get out of it? Oh my God, I'm gonna have to come up with a reason and a story and a whole excuse. And he'd just be like, just say no.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing that is the most horrifying. I see on the look, the faces of the women in my group, they blanch, they eyes widen, that you can see the shoulders come up, the heart rate increase. The concept of saying no, that no is a complete fucking sentence. No, just no. And
Yeah.
I was listening to a brilliant, you'll know Brene Brown. I love her. I was listening to a video of hers a while back, and she was saying about how we do choose this long-term resentment over short-term discomfort of saying no. And she said that she had this epiphany one year when she was asked to, at very short notice, bake like 250 cookies for this school thing. And she said nowadays she has this little spinny ring on her finger. And what happens nowadays is so someone says, oh, Brene, can you like do 250 cookies for the thing for next week for the school? And she'll go, no. And it buys her some breathing time. She said, because otherwise what happened is I would be there and I would be, yes. And she said, I know myself. I know when I'm people pleasing because I go really high and I go really squeaky. And I'm like, yes, of course I'll do the cookies. What do you want in them? And she's like, higher and higher. I can't do it because I've got a cold. But, and she said, I'd be there and I'd be stirring these cookies and I'd be like, I hope they fucking choke on these cookies. And she would just be like really in this long-term angry resentment. She said, all I needed to do was just say no. And actually then substitute it with what you can do instead. So sometimes we feel like we're not allowed to let people down. What does that look like? So you can say, oh yeah, I can't do that doesn't work for me. I can buy you some. I can come along and donate this, or there's something else I can add. I want to, but it's just knowing that we are absolutely allowed to do what works for us. And that's not something that we inherently hold because we've taken on everybody else's shit. My friend Rachel, who's also a fabulous psychologist, we play this game called Whose Shit Is This? And it's literally bag that shit up and hand it back to them because it's very rarely yours. So that is so liberating.
That's Molly's monkeys, isn't it?
It is. It's
Yeah.
Molly's monkeys. It's Leslie's like, what the hell have I taken on here? It's Nikki's kind of, I don't know, this kind of gallbladder boundary feeling that I've got. Is everything
Yeah.
can be encapsulated in whose shit is this? And I literally in my head have a visualization of parceling it back up into one of those kind of drawstring bags with a lovely bow on it, and literally in my head handing it back to them. And it is so therapeutic to do that.
Nice.
Our safety brain just wants a template. It wants a pattern of us being able to visualize handing that stress back to somebody else.
Yeah. So I'm aware of the time, and I never want these things to last too much longer than an hour because it's already we've put a lot of information out there. So I'm going to come to each of you and ask, what is one of your favorite boundaries that you now swear by? And how did you have to train people to respect it? Nikki, should we come to you first?
One I am very proud of is if I show up 100%, which means if I don't want to do something, I don't go. I say no. And it is literally, so here's my story of it. My sister, who I love, she's best friend, okay? I moved from the suburbs to a farm just a couple of years ago, not even. And my sister hates the farm. Farms are dirty. There's animal poop. There's chickens that she thinks are going to fly at her head at random times. She doesn't understand them. She doesn't like it. Okay. So she will come to the farm in white shoes and a beautiful maxi dress over the summer, which I don't like. Okay. So when she people pleases and she shows up somewhere she does not want to be, not that she doesn't want to see me, but we could meet at the beach in Florida for all we care. We don't care. It doesn't have to be at the farm. But when she shows up here, I don't like it because she's not happy. She's miserable. She is not the person that I want to spend time with. Okay. And that is for all of us. When we do not want to be somewhere, we are not 100% ourselves. We are not showing up the way we want to show up in the world. So if it's not a heck yes, it's a no. And I think that's something that I've learned to do, setting things up in advance of, hey, like I've got a burial that's on Monday. It's winter time right now. I really want to go to the burial. I flew out, I went to the funeral. They're separate events, but the burial would involve me driving 6 hours in potential snow, one way, and then turning around doing and coming back. So 12-hour driving one day. No, that's a no. It's an I'm sorry, I would visit the site later, but I cannot attend at that time on that day. It doesn't work for me. And guess what? Coming out and saying no instead of being like, maybe I'll try to go, or that doesn't serve anyone either. Showing up and saying, this is my reason why, and that's why it's a no for me. You don't have to give people a reason. I choose to. Um, that is my superpower with boundaries, and I suggest everyone try it. Try it.
Awesome. Molly, I'm going to guess yours is having your exercise hour, or
Yeah,
do you have
I
another
mean,
one?
that is definitely one, but I was going to piggyback off what Nikki was saying. It made me think of that whole boundary setting thing. It was like when we went through COVID, obviously that wasn't a great time. However, it was a really good excuse to not have to go to the certain things that you were like, I didn't want to go anyway. So sweet. It was a dream for introverts, right? So I live in a house of boys. So I've got two boys and then my husband, and they can't find their things for quite often. So, you know, the old me without boundaries would, stop what I was doing and be like, "Oh my gosh, where's the ski stuff? Where's the this?" and run around. And I just noticed this about myself the other day, that I was like, "Oh, I'm doing a really good job with this." Because I'm like, I'm not sure, where'd you put it? And I just kind of put it back onto them, where it's like, "Oh, your emergency is not my emergency." Got it. Where it was like I was allowing all of my nervous system to get all entangled with everybody else's monkeys. And so that's really helped me. And I think having everybody home has been, a really good teacher for me in that, because it's like, well, I can't do that all day. So I'm going to have to start somewhere. And of course, I'm not perfect and I get pulled into it more often than I'd like to admit, but I've come a long way. So I'm sure that will
Awesome.
help some moms out there with boys. I'm sure some girls are like that too. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's in front of you.
Yes.
Is
It
it?
always is. I'm like right here.
Yeah.
But no.
Leslie, what's a boundary that you're particularly proud of? And I'm gonna caveat this with the fact that I know you've had to move to places for your husband's work and stuff. So I imagine that's kind of brought in a layer
Oh,
of
girl, I
different
set that
stuff.
boundary when we got married, before we even got engaged. I said, I will move anywhere we need to for your work. And the moment you retire, I get to choose. Don't look at me with a decision. I get the end. Okay, my
I
friend?
like it.
Yeah, that was
Good.
set before I even had a ring on my finger. Okay. I was not, I'm fine with doing what you need to do for your work. Okay. But I was pretty clear up front too, that I was like, I will not apply for job after job wherever we move. I hate resumes. I hate interviews. I hate all the things. I'm great at it. Hate it. So I was pretty upfront with that. Like that was pre-kids though. I feel like after you have kids, your boundaries shift. And so mine is going to be kind of interesting, which is that the hardest part of me for a boundary was that I had to keep it. I couldn't say to you, this is the line, you don't cross it, because they're going to cross and cross and cross. And so a part of me, when I started sending boundaries, was mad. Because wait. I've gone my whole life letting everybody break all these things, listening to all the things. And when I finally say, I want this, you're going to push back on me instead of hear me. And now I have to do the thing, right? I have to do the thing, right? So there was a part of me when I started this boundary thing that was like, I just want to cry. I want to break down. Why is it that after all this, I still have to do those work? I call this like the like the cycle breaker, right? Because I really am a cycle breaker in so many ways, right? So it's like, wait a minute, you got to do all this stuff to me, and now I just have to like lay it down and do it the healthy way. But you're still doing it to me, and I'm still trying to do it the healthy way. And here I am in the middle, right? So I think the thing that has been my best boundary to set is actually within myself. And that is that, okay, all of that just funneled through. And like, as you can feel it, I feel that. I feel every single thing. Like, I am so mad that you got to just punish me and send me to my room. I am so mad that this got to happen and this got to happen and this got to happen. And I'm so mad. Okay, now this part of me has to just funnel this in and settle this down. Okay. So the boundary had to be within myself to funnel this in, to settle it down, to be okay with it, to then come to this and be like, okay, this is how we're going to do this. This is a new boundary. And this is my thing. This is what I'm going to do. I see that you two can't stop hitting. So I'm going to sit in between, or I'm going to take you into this room and you into this room. Or like a boundary with my husband, like, because he's been away, right? I love you. I want to FaceTime too, but I don't want to FaceTime with you while you're playing your video game. You're either going to focus on me or we're not going to talk. Okay. So I'm going to hang up now while you finish. And if you feel the need to call me back, go ahead. And click, I go, right? I have to take the action. That was hard for me in the beginning.
Well done.
And so that's my best boundary, is the boundary within, to allow the part of me to have the tearful cry goodbye, which I was never allowed to have, the anger, the frustration, the sadness, the whatever, and then have the nervous system release to then set the boundary. Because I would try to funnel this into this, but this person wasn't getting it, right? Because it actually had to come through me. So that would be mine. And it's all really internal and absolutely nothing to do out there.
Yeah.
So,
Joe, what's one you're proud of?
Well, I was just echoing really something that Leslie said there. And it was kind of linked with a very, very quick top tip around boundaries in general. Boundaries do not require anything of the other person. Boundaries are just things that we do for ourselves. So I just quickly wanted to say that. So there's two. One real quick one, which I've adopted. I always used to take on too much, still do sometimes. And one boundary that I'm really, really fierce about nowadays is I'm at capacity and I'm not going to be taking that on. I'm going to decline that. It's actually, there's no shame in admitting when you are at capacity. And actually, you don't even need to be at capacity. You can just go, no, I don't want to. And that gets easier and easier as you do it. But the one that I'm really proud of goes back to an earlier point in my life where when you're a therapist, you get called on to referee and negotiate family arguments. And that sucks. So one thing that I brought in a few years ago is a boundary that simply says, I am not here to be caught in the middle of family arguments. If you have something you need to say to each other, please do it directly and not through me. And that has revolutionized my viewpoint on some of the toxicity around the inherited need to jump in and rescue or mediate or peacekeep or smooth or whatever you want to call it. And that has felt very liberating, just to say, yeah, absolutely, I totally hear you. You're talking to the wrong person though. Go tell them. And that has felt really good. So there's my little family arbitration tip for you.
Fair enough, fair enough. I feel like we've covered some good things there. I'm trying to think what one of my boundaries is, and my brain's just like given up on me completely. But no, I think it's that I have always, well, not always, clearly not always, but a few years ago, I got a new phone and I didn't put my work emails onto it. And that for me just gives a really nice balance and distinction. And you guys, as the experts in the hub, have probably all at some point been on the receiving end of dropping me a message in Messenger or on WhatsApp or whatever, and me going, can you pop that in an email? Because what I'm actually saying is, I'm not at my desk. I'm not taking on the responsibility of having to remember this.
Well done.
Right now, because it's going to fall out of my brain. And if you send it to me in an email, I will see it at a time when my brain is functioning. And it's so simple, but it has removed untold levels of stress from me for feeling like a failure for forgetting things. And now it's literally as simple as going, can you just pop that in an email?
And it was
Like,
never your failure. It wasn't failure, was it? It was
no,
never your failure to
no.
begin with.
But
So
it's interesting how it causes no extra effort to the other person,
yeah,
and it streamlines my life.
yeah. You're
And
brilliant at
I
time.
think
Like, you're brilliant.
that's where a good boundary, I think, comes in, is where it doesn't cause the other person particular hassle, but it gives untold benefits to you, you know. And it might be that you don't show up to an event because it's going to cause untold stress for you, but actually for the other person, you know, there will be other people at the event, whatever. um it could be all sorts of things, but I think, yes, a well executed boundary gives you peace and causes very little upset to the other person,
Yeah,
when the alternative would have caused you untold stress and would also have had minimal impact on the other person.
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, awesome. Well, I feel like we've had a lovely little PeriClinic there, and I think we
Really
also,
good.
on the topic of boundaries, could talk for about 25 years, but
We
we're not
can.
going to. So thank you all, ladies, very much. I'm going to stop our recording now.